Would you breathe with me, please? And let's bring us back. So take it in. And again. And one more time. And release. Reverend Leslie had a beautiful meditation today where we breathed in God and breathed out is. Breathed in I and breathed out am. God is, I am. It was really lovely. There's something about the breath. Inspire. We're breathing in spirit. We're breathing out what doesn't belong. Breathing in spirit, breathing out what doesn't belong. So, never in over 21 years of ministry have I ever started a talk by making an apology before I even begin. I ask forgiveness sometimes because, things come out of my mouth sometimes where I'm just like, where did that come from? And I know Lance, our board president, is often just like, what is she talking about? But never before have I started out by asking for forgiveness. But the reason why I'm doing is because I want to share a song lyric with you that is kind of the impetus of my talk, but at first blush, it's going to sound kind of insulting to half the population. But the message behind it is so profound, I'm risking it. So, are you guys willing to forgive me for this song lyric? There's no bad words. No. Nod your head, say yes, or are you like, wait, just hold on a minute. We want to know what it is first. Okay. So one of the really popular musicians right now on the charts is a woman named Lizzo. How many of you are familiar with Lizzo? Okay. Lizzo is this full-figured, I think that's why I like her. She's full-figured, sexy, tell it like it is, hip-hop pop singer, right? And she just oozes appeal. And one of the songs that she sings is called Truth Hurts. And the lyric is, why men great till they gotta be great? Now, initially, this sounds like a sharp criticism of men who are all talk and no action. And for the purpose of the song, Lizzo's version, it is. She's saying that the men in her life maybe talk a great game, but when the rubber hits the road, they don't show up. It's kind of this funny, quirky women's anthem song. Now, guys, I know I don't feel this way about you, right? Some of my greatest supporters are men who have showed up in a really, really big way. But the reason I wanted to use this is because when I first heard this song, when I first heard this lyric, and I put it through my Science of Mind filters, which I always do, it became a statement not about men, but about all of us. And so it became why we great till we gotta be great. In other words, how is it that we can give beautiful, loving lip service to this teaching and these principles until it gets difficult, until there's a virus dominating the news, or a politician we don't like, or a relationship breakup, or a diagnosis that frightens us, or someone hurts our feelings, or we didn't get the job that we wanted, or someone has an accident? How many of us say that we believe in divine right action and oneness and infinite intelligence and change your thinking, change your life, and love your neighbor until it becomes inconvenient to do so? Now, please understand, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I'm guilty of it too. Absolutely. And I'm supposed to know better. But there are definitely times in my life when I let conditions and circumstances dictate how I'm going to respond. And instead of standing in my truth, I go there because it's hard. Yeah? There's a very well-known phrase. Yale uses it all the time. He didn't make it up, though, because it's actually attributed to a number of really great metaphysical teachers. And that is, never forsake principle, not even for a special occasion. Never forsake principle, not even for a special occasion. When we're talking about principle here, we are talking about a fundamental truth. In this teaching, principle to us means that God, or whatever you want to call it, I know people get hung up on the word God. It's a word. It's a word. You could use love. You could use intelligence. You could use the universe. You could use the cosmic muffin. It doesn't care. But what it is that God is all there is. God is all there is. That is the fundamental principle of our teaching. And that everything, including us, is part of it. And it responds to us according to our thoughts and according to our beliefs. Principle is also known as the law of cause and effect. What you reap, you sow. What goes around comes around. So that statement, never forsake principle, not even for a special occasion, means not allowing what's going on in the outside world of effect to shake what we know to be true, that God is all there is. It is ultimately good, and it responds to us, and we are a part of it. Yes? That is principle. Here's how Ernest Holmes put it. It is not always easy to do this, even he admits it, but the law of cause and effect, being no respecter of persons and always working automatically and mechanically and with mathematical precision, must flow through each one of us in the terms of our own acceptance. When we become confused and short-circuit this acceptance, we are cutting ourselves off from its supply. But we do not destroy the supply. It is still there. So if we are not feeling it, it didn't go anywhere. We somehow got turned around, shall we say. Because that principle, that God, whatever it is always working. It's always there. Even if we forget and we believe in something outside of it. It doesn't go away. We sometimes turn our back to it. Yes? Does that make sense? So what we need to do is consistently remind ourselves and each other what we know to be true. And to stand in our truth. So I shared with you last week that at the recent convention that a few of us were at, we elected a new spiritual leader. Spiritual leader in Centers for Spiritual Living is like the outward face of the organization. In layman's terms, or in other people's terms, it's like the Pope. Not really, because, we're not like that. But anyway, this is the outside face of the organization. And who we elected is a man by the name of Dr. Edward Viljoen. Dr. Edward is a wonderful minister. He's a teacher. He's a leader in our movement. He's been around for quite a long time. He has a very large center in Santa Rosa, California. And one of the things that I love the most about Edward is that he is so generous in spirit. By that I mean he's very creative. He comes up with all kinds of different things that allows him to have this really, really large center there in Santa Rosa. But rather than being kind of proprietary about it and keeping his creations to himself, He very willingly gives them to anyone who could use them. I'm talking about classes and talks and notes and methods of governance and how to be prosperous and marketing out everything, you name it. Because he believes in the vision of Centers for Spiritual Living, which is creating a world that works for everyone. And he supports all of us in doing so by providing these creative ideas that come to him. So he told a story when the day that he was elected spiritual leader that really spoke to this idea about standing in our truth and being great when we need to be great. I asked him if I could share the story, and he said yes, of course, because he's generous. So I want you to picture this. There's all kinds of hoopla. There's all kinds of intrigue going on as to who's going to be elected the next spiritual leader, because the last spiritual leader had been in the job for 8 years. Ever since the two organizations came together, he's been it, right? So who's going to be our new spiritual leader? And we had 5 candidates that were all super, super well qualified. But you can imagine how the energy was. I mean, it was just like, wow, it's going to really, really stressful, because whoever was going to be elected, their life was going to change forever. So perhaps to escape the heightened energy, Edward and his husband, Kevin, chose not to stay at the conference hotel, but stayed in the Airbnb down the road. And on the night of the actual voting, but before any results were voted or were announced, they'd gone back to their condo, and Edward went to bed, and Kevin went out to get some groceries. And Edward got a text from Kevin that simply said, "I've been hit by a car. Come now." I've been hit by a car. Imagine getting that text in a strange city. And Edward said, in that moment, everything shifted. In that moment, nothing was more important than getting to Kevin and making sure that he was okay. He was, by the way. But at the time, Edward didn't know that. So he raced out of the condo, and when he got to the intersection where Kevin was, all he could see were the lights of the police cars, the crowds, and the ambulance. But because the roads were slick, it was Denver. So Denver's like Calgary, right? The roads were slick. He couldn't just go racing across the street to get to his beloved. As he put it, I had to stand and wait for the green light. Excuse me. I had to stand and wait for a sign to tell me it was okay to move ahead. And as he stood there, he had the presence of mind to begin repeating a mantra that he has taught thousands of people, myself included, through his years in ministry. It is based on the science of mind principle that I've talked about. And that mantra is, there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And he repeated it rhythmically as a mantra as he stood on the street corner for what seemed like a lifetime. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. He said it over and over and over again in that rhythmic way, because he was being called upon to be great, to stand in his truth, to stay in principle during a special occasion. Not to be disturbed by all the lights and the terror, to know that there is only one life. And he was part of it, and Kevin was part of it, and the first responders were part of it. Because as he said, Kevin needed me to show up. So when he finally got there, got to Kevin, he said, was so filled with adrenaline that he wasn't making any sense talking to the paramedics. So Edward said, it fell on me to be able to talk to the paramedics. So as frightened as he was, he started another affirmation that he knew. And that was, everything I need to know about what lies before me is available to me through the mind of God within me. In other words, affirming that he had access to the limitless information and wisdom of the universe right there and then when he needed it. And as I said, Kevin was okay. But what a way to discover, what a way to remember the importance of standing in truth when the special occasion of the you-know-what hitting the fan is happening right there. And how Edward ended his story was with these words. Thank God I had been practicing during the good times. That's the crux of my talk today. The importance of being so steeped in principle, so steady on our feet, so strong in our conviction that when a special occasion shows up, and it will, we can look it right in the eyes and stand in our truth. We had a conversation very recently on our ministers listserv. We have a thing where we can ask questions and kind of have a dialogue. And a lot of people were asking how to be with the news about this virus. Should we talk about it? Should we give it credence? Should we change how we gather? Should we do only live streaming? What do we do? Because we are being inundated with fear about it 24/7, even if you're not listening to the news or you're not looking online, it's in the atmosphere. It's in the consciousness, the collective consciousness. This feeling of fear is right there. It has the possibility of breaching through even the most awakened minds. So it got me to thinking, why is this so in our faces right now? Got me to thinking about metaphysicians of 100 years ago when Emma Curtis Hopkins was alive. These were powerful healers. These people were powerful teachers and powerful healers, and they got stuff done. And it was like, how come they didn't let stuff like that get in their way? And what I got was that they can stand in their truth because news took days and weeks to get to them, right? They didn't have the internet and CNN. Constantly negative news. I didn't make that up. I stole it. That's okay. So they didn't have all that. All they had was their own knowing of the truth. But we do have the internet. We do have CNN and cable TV and Twitter and Facebook and everything else. This group right here, groups like this meeting all over the world, we were made for times like these. It isn't a coincidence that we're alive during this time. We're the ones we've been waiting for. And we have our work cut out for us. There's so much misinformation. There's so much fear and panic and ignorance in the atmosphere, in the collective, in the group conscious, the group think. So our charge is to not believe in circumstances and conditions that we've been hearing about, but to believe instead in principle. And principle is God is all there is, and I am one with it. Here's how Ernest Holmes put it. When a problem confronts you, take it into the silence of your consciousness. Instead of thinking of the problem, think of the answer. God does not have problems. Therefore, the divine mind is the answer to every human problem. Principles never have problems. Principles are solved by bringing them under the control of principles. Problems are solved by bringing them under the control of principles. The problem is dissolved as the principle flows through it to the correct answer. Ernest Holmes. So let's collectively, got 100 or so people here. Like I said, it's going on Sunday mornings, every different, on the internet, everywhere, this group of people, these people who are here for this time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So let us agree to raise our thoughts above the condition and affirm what we already know. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. That is standing in your truth. And just because it's a good thing to do anyway, keep calm and wash your hands. You with me? All right, and so it is.